It's all right.
I call this meeting of Township High School District 211 Board of Education to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Dombrowski?
Here.
Mr. Hinshaw?
Here.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Here.
Mr. Lefevre?
Here.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Here.
Mr. Young?
Here.
Mrs. Burke?
Here, please stand and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening and welcome. We will begin tonight's meeting with recognitions. Dr. Cates.
Welcome again to our boardroom. I'd like to at this time call Eric Winkowski, our Director of Athletics and Activities, to lead us in some recognitions of some outstanding students this evening.
Board of Education and Dr. Cates, thank you for taking some time to honor some really talented students tonight. Students, as your coach introduces you, I'd ask that you walk forward and receive your award and stand next to the podium. Additionally, I'm going to ask that any family members that are here with their students to please stand and be recognized when directed by their sponsors. After you're recognized, please reform the line, and then we'll take pictures when there's a break in the board meeting. Helping me present awards to the sponsors tonight are Palatine Principal Tony Medina and Assistant Principal Michael Alter, Fremd High School Principal Kurt Teneper and Assistant Principal Eric Dolan, Conan High School Principal Julie Novak and Assistant Principal Mark Langer, and Hoffman Estates Principal Josh Shoemaker and Assistant Principal Brian Harlan. So we'll go ahead and get started here. We'll start with Fremd Group Interpretation. Judy Klingner, she has taught English at Fremd High School for 34 years. She directs the group interpretation or one-act contest play, is co-auditorium manager, tech crew sponsor, and is a musical director at both Fremd and Palatine High Schools. In her 30 years of competing in group interp and contest play, Fremd has advanced to the state tournament 28 times, bringing home 7 state trophies, including the championship in 2015. Ms. Klingner is a member of the Illinois Theater Association, serving on the board of directors for the last 10 years. She was a member of the all-state production staff, being the choreographer in 2002 and director in 2010. And she was recently selected the executive director of the 2021 Theater Festival. Judy will be retiring at the end of this year, and her contributions to District 211 will be greatly missed. Judy.
I'd just like to say thank you to start to the D211 administrators, Board of Education, and the administrators at Fremd, and my assistants on all of the theatrical endeavors that I've been a part of for 34 years. So what is group interpretation? It's always the question of the day. Group interp, according to the IHSA website, says it is an event in which students interpretively present literature, and it's really open. I've been doing this for a long time and I still don't really know what that definition means because we're creating art, and every time we create art it's a little bit different. So what are some of the things that we have to think about when we're doing group interp? We have to do presentational style, which means we are presenting instead of representing realistic theater, and that's a challenge. In group interp, all of the cast members have to be on stage the whole time. So the challenge is to figure out what to do with 12 other people when only 3 people are in a scene. The set may not have walls, but it has to have a platform because the audience is very flat, and so the audience would not be able to see what's happening unless there's a nice platform there. And they can't wear costumes that delineate individual characters. So you can see we have a lot of challenges, but the group worked together as a group. Our crew built a set that was amazing. The cast worked hard to come across some of these difficulties, like, well, we did Who Framed Roger Rabbit this year, and so we had some challenges like, how do we make students appear to be cartoon characters without costumes, just using their bodies and their acting ability. So thank you to all of the students involved. Thank you to the parents who loaned me your children for hours and hours. And don't forget, when I call your students up, please make sure that you stand up to be recognized also. I'm going to start out right here with Abigail Bushmole. Come forward, please. We have a lot of students, so I'm going to ask you to hold your applause until the end, please. Joey Corso. Or you can clap too. That's okay. It's going to take a minute for them to walk across. Emily Cutbirth. Bailey Dean. A one clap is perfect. Kaya Green. Lara Hagios Manolu. Zoe Hannon. Georgia Hessel. Ambrosia Italari. Ben Jennings. Madison Carlin. Jenny Kim. Jade King. Isabella Kopek. Victor Kopek. Leah Latios. Sydney Lenz. Ethan Nails. Ethan Polson. Sarah Reichel. Nicole Saunders. Brooke Toriani. Miles Toriani. Melissa Wallace. Adam Wysocki. And I'm going to pause for a minute because that was just our crew. These are kids who built the scenery, carried the scenery in and out of a truck, up and down on stage, made costumes, sewed costumes, carried costumes, did hair, did makeup. Amazing students. Next we have Izzy DiPaolo. Izzy is a senior, and Izzy was my student assistant. Izzy is the reason I'm still sane to be standing in front of you today. She kept me on track. Now we begin our cast. Diego Camacho, who played the detective in our production. Matthew Froling, who played R.K. Maroon. If you know the movie, you can just picture them in these roles. Anthony Hannon, Marvin Acme, the owner of Toontown. Bailey McCarthy, Dolores, the girlfriend. Morgan Miller, Jessica Rabbit. You know her part. She's not typecast, so it was a big acting stretch for her. Avery Monticello. Avery, believe it or not, played Baby Herman. Because in a group interp, we had to do a little switcheroo, so she played the baby, and then we had later, I'll introduce you to the boy who played the voice of Baby Herman. Yash Ramanjaman. Yash was a weasel. His name was Brown Nose. He named himself. Autumn Rutke, a weasel. Psycho. Her name was in the script. Abigail Rydberg. Her name was Pat. She was a weasel also, self-named. And these last four not only were cast members, but they won all-state awards. And to be an all-state winner, You must be recognized by a minimum of 4 of the 5 judges. It's pretty hard to do because when the competition is really stiff and you have so many talented students across the state, to get 4 is pretty amazing. So we have Gage Bachman, who played Eddie Valiant, who is the hero of our show, although maybe a little bit disgruntled at times. Joey Barrett, who played Judge Doom, who is definitely the evildoer in the show. He turns into a cartoon. His physical work was astounding. Ben Calhoun, who he was in the ensemble, but he played many roles. Droopy, yes, Droopy from the cartoons you know from a long time ago. Smarty Pants, who was one of the weasels, and he was the voice of Baby Herman. And finally, Holden Meyer, with 5 votes, which is incredible, playing Roger Rabbit. Thank you so much.
All right, next we'll move on to color guard or flags at Hoffman Estates High School. Brittany Westby is an English teacher at Hoffman Estates High School and has been involved in the Skyhawks Guard for 7 years, being the JV coach for 3, and she's been co-coaching the varsity for the last 4 years. Her cohort is Christine Jenkins. She's a retired English teacher from Hoffman Estates High School, and she has been coaching the Skyhawks for more than 30 years. Under her leadership, the Skyhawks were named the Illinois State Champions 4 times. Would you guys come on forward?
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to recognize our team, members, and their accomplishments this season. The Hoffman Estates Varsity Skyhawks competed in 4 regional competitions hosted by the Midwest Color Guard Circuit this season and captured a top 3 placing at each. At the championship in LaPorte, Indiana on March 31st, the Skyhawks were awarded bronze medals, taking 3rd place in our class. Parents of our Skyhawks, in attendance rather, please stand. Thank you for every $8 entry fee that you've paid for. Thank you for every single trip to the gas station to make it to our very far competitions. Thank you for placing your tarp in our tarp in your car. Right? We appreciate everything that you've done for us.
And now we would like to introduce the members of our team. First, we have freshman Diana Borsch. Freshman Charlotte McGrath. Charlotte was also awarded the special honor of being the Rookie of the Year for the Midwest Color Guard Circuit. So there were more than 85 different color guards in the Midwest that were competing, and only one received the honor of being Rookie of the Year. So we're very proud of Charlotte. Sophomore Joanna Barron Martinez. Sophomore Hannah Carlson. Sophomore Ilsa Jamil. Junior Shelby Arrigo. Junior Angela Ramirez. Junior Michaela Solorzano. Junior Hannah Tamita. Junior Alexandra Unguranu. Unguranu. I even practiced that and I got it wrong. Sorry. Junior Tori Wagner. Senior and one of our captains, Tasia Williams. Senior and Captain Nishita Patel. Senior and Captain Katie Perez. Senior and Captain Himal Patel. And our last senior and captain, Faith Phillip. Faith was also awarded a scholarship by the Midwest Color Guard Circuit for her outstanding character, leadership, scholarship, and service. So we're also very proud of Faith's accomplishments. Thank you very much for honoring our team.
All right, and we'll move on to FCCLA. We'll start with Palatine High School. Corey Hibner has been teaching in the district for 17 years. She is currently the department chair for Family and Consumer Science at Palatine High School. Kristen Starry has been teaching for 16 years in District 211 and has been the FCCLA sponsor for 14, and she currently teaches early childhood studies and early childhood education at Palatine High School. Corey and Chris.
On behalf of both the students and sponsors at Conant and Palatine, we would first like to thank the board and all of the administrators for your continued support of our program. At this time, we would like all parents of both Palatine and Conant FCCLA members to please stand. We owe you a big thank you as well. Students in Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America showcase skills learned in various family and consumer science classes while competing against many other students from the state. This year at Palatine, we had 10 students go to the state competition, and tonight we have 3 of our 4 first place winners with us.
Okay, here we go. Katie Barclay is, there's our one clap. Katie has competed and earned first place in children's literature presentation. Next is Jenny Klein, and she also competed in children's literature presentation. Look closely for a tear. It's her last year out of 4 with us. And then last but not least, we have Caroline Philman, and she competed in interior design and also took first place. Katie and Jenny both received Most Outstanding for their individual categories, and we know we're going to have even more success next year, so thank you for your time.
All right, and our final group for the night is the FCCLA students from Conant High School. Jackie Brown is their sponsor. She's been a culinary arts teacher at Conant High School since 2007. She is currently the sponsor of FCCLA and is currently runs the Conant High School's Cougar Perks program. Jackie.
Thank you very much for honoring us here tonight. This year, Conant had 19 students compete in apparel construction, children's literature presentation, culinary arts, and interior design at the regional level. 14 of them were able to advance to the state competition, Springfield. And then tonight we have 4 of the 9 first place finishers from the state competition. So first we have senior Patricia Demore for children's literature presentation. Next we have Erin Nelly for her decorated cookie. Now we have Paige Zielinski. She is a senior, and this is actually the dress that she competed with at regionals this year. And last but not least, we have sophomore Norma Betancourt, and she also competed in fashion construction. Thank you again to all the parents, the board, administrators for honoring all the FCCLA winners this evening.
On behalf of the Board of Education, we'd like to congratulate all the students here today on your achievements. Job well done. We're going to move along into some items of business. We have our April 2nd, 2019 Board of Education election official results. There's a suggested motion that the attached official canvas results of the Cook County Clerk's Office for the April 2nd, 2019 school board election of Township High School District 211, declaring Stephen Rosenblum, Peter R. Dombrowski, Mark J. Kramer, and Kimberly Cavill duly elected members of the Board of Education of Township High School District 211 be accepted as presented, and further, that the official canvas results be entered into the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hintra,
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz,
Aye.
Mr. Young,
Aye.
Mr. Lefevre,
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum,
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Aye.
Mrs. Burke.
Aye. Adjournment Sindai. There's a suggested motion that this meeting of the Board of Education adjourn Sindai.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned.
All right. We will now begin the organizational meeting of the Board of Education of Township High School District 211. As the retiring secretary, I will act as president pro tempore this evening. I welcome everyone to the Township High School District 211 Board of Education meeting. I ask all present to value the procedures and decorum of our meeting and to be respectful of all. As a reminder, our meeting is being videotaped. I call this meeting of Township High School District 211 Board of Education to order. I will also ask the recording secretary, Sally Simarusti, to act as secretary pro tempore to conduct roll calls during the election of officers. At this time, I will ask Dr. Cates to introduce. Oh, wait a minute, I have to do the, may I have a roll call, please, Sally?
Okay. Ms. Cavell,
Aye.
Mr. Kramer,
Here.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Here.
Mr. Lefevre,
Here.
Mr. Rosenblum,
Here.
Mr. Young,
Here.
Mrs. Klimkowitz.
Here. Okay. At this time, we're going to do the oath of office, and I will ask Dr. Cates to introduce North Cook Intermediate Service Center Assistant Director Diane Betts, who will administer the oath of office to the new Board of Education members. Will the newly elected board members please stand in front of the board table?
We are honored to have Assistant Director of the North Cook Intermediate Service Center, Dr. Diane Betts, with us this evening to administer the oath of office to our newly elected Board of Education members. Dr. Betts has more than 3 decades of extensive experience in education, serving in numerous roles including principal, assistant superintendent, adjunct professor, and assistant director for the North Cook Intermediate Service Center. She began her career with North Cook Intermediate Service Center in 2013. We are pleased to have Dr. Betts administer the oath of office as prescribed by the Illinois School Code. Welcome, Diane.
Make this pretty easy for you. I want you to answer I do after each section. I do. 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 I do
Thank you very much, Ms. Betts. Thank you for being here and for inducting our newly elected board members. And welcome to our board members, our returning board members, and to our two new board members. Thank you and welcome. At this time, the procedure is to establish the board officers. So the first order of business is to elect a Board of Education president. Are there any nominations for board president?
I would like to nominate Mr. Robert Lefevre as president of the school board.
Mr. Lefevre has been nominated for president. Are there any other nominations for board president? Are there any other nominations for board president? Mr. Lefevre being the only candidate nominated for the office of president, the chair hereby declares him elected by acclamation and directs the secretary to so record in the minutes. Thank you.
Next, we have the election of the vice president. Are there any nominations for the office of vice president?
I would like to nominate Mrs. Anna Klimkowitz to be vice president of the Township High School District 211 Board of Education.
Mrs. Klimkowitz has been nominated for the office of vice president. Are there any other nominations for the office of vice president? Are there any other nominations for the office of vice president? The nominations for the office of vice president are now closed. Mrs. Klimkowitz being the only candidate nominated for the office of vice president, the chair hereby declares her elected by acclamation and directs the secretary to so record in the minutes. Next are the nominations for the office of secretary. Do we have any nominations for the office of secretary?
I would like to nominate Mr. Ed Young to be secretary of the Township High School District 211 Board of Education.
Mr. Young has been nominated for the office of secretary. Are there any other nominations for the office of secretary? Are there any other nominations for the office of secretary? The nominations for the office of secretary are now closed. Mr. Young being the only candidate nominated for the office of secretary, the chair hereby declares him elected by acclamation and directs the secretary to so record in the minutes. The next item of business is the adoption of policies of the preceding Board of Education. We have a suggested motion that the newly formed Board of Education adopt and be guided in its operation by the existing policies as adopted by the previous board until changed or amended by this board.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Rosenblum,
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz,
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Aye.
Mr. Kramer,
Aye.
Mr. Young,
Aye.
Ms. Cavill,
Aye.
Mr. Lefevre.
Aye. Next item of business is informational to establish the time, place, and date of regular Board of Education meetings. Any questions? Next item of business is board liaisons. Again, this is just informational. Any questions?
Would you like these responses on liaison directly to you or through the superintendent?
The superintendent is fine.
Thank you.
No other questions? Next item of business is Board of Education agreements. Any questions here?
Now these, when we established these 4 years ago, they were to expire at the end of that current board term. Are we looking to extend these even further?
If you have a suggestion, otherwise I think we're just going forward until these are changed.
I didn't realize they were still active.
The previous board has adopted them. There was an action to do so, and they are presented here for your everyone's awareness, not recommended with any action tonight,
Okay.
but the board might choose to take further action at some point in the future.
So we're not
to again adopt
adopting
them.
these tonight? Okay.
It was for people's awareness as we organized the board.
Well, if I may add, because we did spend a great deal of time working on them, and I think that that's really important, and it's important for our new board members to take a look at this and have an understanding of how the board functions and how we need to be able to work together. And I think these were a good set of guidelines for us to follow in regards to our governance. So, and I suspect we would be talking about these next month then, because we need to approve them if we want to continue with that.
That would be up to the board whether the board would want to approve them.
So my personal feeling is I think we need to take a look at them, and if something needs to be updated, we should be able to do that. But we should have some type of foundation agreement for our governance. So, thank you.
And according to the item in our agenda that we've been provided with, it says that these are for our review and consideration for adoption at the May meeting. So I guess if anybody has any questions or concerns, it can be discussed at that point after a review.
All right, that'll bring us to citizen appearances and presentations. I believe I have a list here. Howard Kier? Yes, sir. Please.
Thank you, Board. There are two pieces of commentary I'd like to make. The first is an announcement. Being a proud dad, I want to say congratulations to Schaumburg High School class of 2018 graduate Megan Kier on being named Drake University's top freshman of the year. So that's a credit to the district. Thank you. And next, just had the opportunity to participate in the surplus auction and spent some time talking to the mechanics who also maintain the driver's education vehicles and our buses, and I found them to be very professional, very safety oriented, and it gave me a very good feeling about shipping my kids off in the morning on the bus. So I wanted to make sure that they were recognized. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Peter Pachori? Passiori. Thank you.
Hello. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak. What I'd like to address you on today is the calls for closed session. And specifically, I'd like to address the call for setting the price of the sale of land owned by a public body. I'm making certain assumptions, and my assumption is that that land is the sale of the land on Summit in Schaumburg, because the due diligence period under that contract expires April 30th. If I'm wrong, please let me know, and I will not waste the board's time anymore. But my concern is that this is a violation of the Open Meetings Act. I do this every day. I represent folks like you, different boards, all over the northwest suburban area. If this is the item you are discussing, you're not discussing the setting of a price. The price has already been set by contract. You are amending a contract. MI Homes has requested certain relief from the board. One of those relief is a reduction in price of in excess of $5 million. That price was set by a sealed bid, and for you to discuss that in a closed session would be a violation of the act. I know this for several reasons because I deal with the PAC on a daily basis. That is an improper call and an improper discussion in closed session. So if it is related to that property on Summit, I ask that you remove that from the call and either do not discuss it or discuss it in open session. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Parker.
Good evening. I noticed that the school board more often than not, has a lot of award ceremonies that they have before these public meetings. I was thinking that those ceremonies would be better held at the local high school where these kids can receive the awards in front of their peers. I feel that, I think today it went on for maybe half an hour. Public comments are 5 minutes, sometimes limited to 3. We could probably use that time better to invite the community, you know, community engagement, and give them or people that would like to speak to the board a little more time. Thank you.
Thank you. That'll bring us to the approval of minutes from our regular board meeting of April 4, 2019. We have 2 suggested motions because not all board members were present at the meeting on April 4th, 2019. The first, that the consent agenda with the removal of the minutes of the regular meeting of April 4, 2019 be approved as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Cavill,
Abstain.
Mr. Kramer,
Abstain.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz,
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum,
Aye.
Mr. Young,
Aye.
Mr. Lefevre,
Aye. The second motion is that the minutes of the regular meeting of April 4, 2019 be approved as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Cavill,
Abstain.
Mr. Kramer,
Abstain.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz,
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum,
Aye.
Mr. Young,
Aye.
Mr. Lefevre,
Aye. Next item of business, we have Freedom of Information Act requests. Any questions here? Next item of business, we have Diesel Emission Reduction Act School Bus Rebate Program Award recipient. And I believe the superintendent may want to make some remarks.
I do. Thank you very much. We have begun replacing some of our diesel buses with propane buses, and I just wanted to highlight this is a grant whereby we received $200,000 this year. We presently have 15 propane buses now, and after this summer we'll have 30. The propane buses are more economical. We calculate that they cost $1,500 less per year to operate, and with this grant it is about $2,500 less a year. They have an annual lower fuel cost. They have reduced maintenance. They are certainly better on the environment, and they've been proven to be more reliable in the winter. So I just want to again acknowledge the Transportation Department that was recognized earlier and the work that has been done there to improve the district's efficiency, and this has certainly been one of those avenues, and we're very pleased to receive this grant this year.
All right, our next item of business is the Community Connections newsletter, strategic plan update. Any questions? That'll bring us to our employee wellness program recognition. Any questions here? Next, we have new business. First is summer curriculum projects. We have a suggested motion that the Board of Education approve the summer curriculum projects at a cost not to exceed the following per grant. Title I, $65,500. Title II, $79,200. IDEA, $23,625.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz,
Aye.
Mr. Kramer,
Aye.
Ms. Cavill,
Aye.
Mr. Young,
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum,
Aye.
Mr. Lefevre,
Aye. Next item of business, we have in-district professional learning opportunities for the summer of 2019. The suggested motion is that the superintendent be authorized to offer the following professional learning opportunities for in-district credit. Atomic Habits, an essay and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones. It's a book study, as proposed.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Klimkowitz,
Aye.
Mr. Kramer,
Aye.
Mr. Young,
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Aye.
Ms. Cavill,
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum,
Aye.
Mr. LaFever,
Aye. Next item of business, the one-to-one program and electronic device purchase. The suggested motion is that the Board of Education authorizes the district to purchase 4,010 iPads from Apple at a total cost of $1,118,790 to support the one-to-one learning program during the 2019-2020 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
4,000, that's more than the incoming freshman class. The additional amount, is that to replace staff iPad devices?
The teaching faculty.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that throughout so they're going to get refreshed this year for the entire staff or faculty?
For the teaching faculty. Mm-hmm.
Question, what happens to the old ones?
So the teaching faculty are on a 2-year cycle, and those go down then to the teacher assistants. There are many that are resold to a third-party vendor who, from that we use those funds to help repair and replenish in future purchases.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Rosenblum,
Aye.
Ms. Cavill,
Aye.
Mr. Young,
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz,
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Aye.
Mr. Kramer,
Aye.
Mr. LaFever,
Aye. Next item of business, Board of Education training with Illinois Association of School Boards representative. We have a suggested motion that the Board of Education meet with an IASB field services representative at its regular meeting on Thursday, May 23rd, 2019, during closed session, and agree to pay the $400 fee for the service.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
I'm opposed to this. I think, though, 4 years ago when we went through this process, I felt like it ate up a lot of time that we could have dedicated to a more productive discussion. I think it also kind of established expectations or divisions among the board. My recommendation is that we forego a self-evaluation.
If I may, I'm not ready for that. I'm new. I want to get to know you people up here before I would commit to attending a session like that.
If I may, I'm also new, and I would appreciate the service simply because I think it would help establish norms and expectations for the way these meetings are supposed to operate, both in open and in closed session, as well as communication expectations that happen outside of these meetings, if any.
My opinion is that I'd rather have this earlier than later to help us get those groundworks and foundations and set expectations, not necessarily for each other individually, but as an entire Board of Education. I think it will help us have a better understanding of what our roles are, whether we've been on the board for 1.5 years or a few hours. I think it would be very helpful to us.
I feel very strongly in regards to it because I think it sets a good basis. It gives us an opportunity because we will be in closed session because we have the IASB representative. So it gives us a good opportunity to really be able to speak about things, concerns, anything that comes up, and how can we best work together, because that is our goal and that is what we have to do as a board. So I think this is really important.
In my opinion, I think we have the framework already established. There's the IASB rules of conduct, which I've read, and I agree with them. We also just took a 10-minute oath. And I think that the framework is already there. What makes a difference is how we interact here at the board, as adults, as professionals. And I think I know each one of you from one way or another, and I think we can do that without somebody else having a session to tell us how we should act with each other.
I don't think it's as much as her telling us how to act with one another. I think it's the representative giving us a little bit of history about working together as a board and reviewing these agreements that we had set before and what we may want to add to it. I see it as a positive. I see it as a conversation. I see it as, beneficial to everyone, because we should all be lifelong learners and be able to take some new things away from whatever we participate in.
In response to Mr. Dombrowski, how long is the session, the workshop portion of the closed meeting?
1.5 to 2 hours is what, this is the estimate.
I read in the flyer that it could be as long as 3 to 3.5 hours to set aside that much time.
We can always set a limit.
No, I think it's imperative that it does happen because it'll give us some clarity as to what our roles are to each other as well as to the community. So I think it's a good session to have.
I disagree that we have an established framework. I do agree, though, that we have a tremendous opportunity, and I think that this session would help us take advantage of the opportunity that we've all been afforded.
Anyone else? Roll call, please.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye.
Mr. Kramer?
Nay.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Nay.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Ms. Cavill?
Aye.
Mr. Lefevre?
Aye. Next, we have potential topics for future discussion, if anybody has anything.
I'd like to propose that we ask the administration when they come back with the budget next month to seek reductions in that budget and provide us with alternative budgets that incorporate those reductions. And I'd like to see it limited to maybe 2 alternatives, one with about 5 million in reductions and another with about 2.5 million in reductions.
So just to clarify, you're seeking full, complete budgets in addition to the one that we would propose that would then thereafter cut an additional 2.5 million and an additional 5 million, so 3 full, complete budget plans with those
It
permutations?
doesn't necessarily have to be complete budget plans, but it would say, what I would look for is alternatives if we wanted to propose a budget with expenditures that were 5 million less than the recommendation. Here's where the board would see cuts, and then another alternative. So it could simply just be a alternative expenditure with a list of reductions.
Okay, so
It wouldn't have to be a full-blown make-out of that budget.
okay, so there's, I'll use loose terms, but areas versus line items. And if you're seeking line item
No, I
complete
think
budgets.
I think areas would be good, just to have the discussion. I don't think that I'm not suggesting that the board would take action with this budget since we've already made approval of certain items. But I would like to have the alternatives for the discussion so that we as a board could feel where those costs would come out or how they would impact the district as a whole.
There's a budget and finance meeting on May 1st.
Right.
Is that a good place for us to further the discussion or
Again, it would
considerations?
depend on the majority of the board if we would want to direct the administration. I don't want to assume that there's a majority of support here, but directing to find those costs and put the effort forth to find those reductions. If there is a will, we can further discuss that at the committee meeting.
Okay.
I'd like to offer support for that, and from whether it a line item or an area item, I would propose that it start at the area, and then if any member of the board has questions, that our administrators and yourself, Dr. Cates, be prepared to further break that down if requested. So be prepared at the area level. But then if we say, well, where is that going to come from within that area, then either be prepared to discuss it at that meeting or be able to come back to us.
Is that discussion going to take place at the May 1st meeting or a board meeting?
That's an excellent question, Mr. Kramer. I'm interested to know the answer to that myself, yeah. I'm not sure if you're talking about for the budget and finance meeting or for the next May 9th meeting, or what exactly the timeline is people are looking for.
The budget's presented May 9th?
Well, we present different funds. So because of there are multiple funds, we don't actually bring in the full complete budget until August for its tentative adoption, and then full adoption in September. So what we've been doing is over a span of several months, we'll bring in numerous funds. So we wouldn't have the major fund, the education fund, until definitely, the late summer, early August. So, and that's where the majority of our expenses are. So if you're looking for even an area reduction of those significant amounts, those are substantial amounts, it would be a wild guess until we have the full budget.
Right, relative against that, correct.
Yes.
So, Mr. Superintendent, are you saying that a May 1st presentation would be premature?
It's premature to bring in 2.5 and $5 million of reductions. I think I hear what the exercise or the interest of at least some of the board members is, and we can certainly gauge that. The May budget meeting affords an opportunity for people to discuss possible reductions within whatever fund we would be discussing at that time.
So we can discuss it in committee and then put it as an item on the May agenda.
There's 2 meetings in May as well that would also afford some opportunity for us to understand what the board may be seeking for either one of those
So
items.
is it going to be discussed on May 1st or deferred?
When you say it, I'm not sure what you...
Some preliminary discussion about Mr. Dombrowski's request, will that be discussed on May 1st?
Let me just kind of throw this out a little bit. Maybe we need clarification as to what happens at that budget committee meeting, and that might clarify some of your questions. Can you just kind of...
It's a personal request because I'm not going to be here. Okay, I have a previously scheduled trip, so I'm not going to be here. If you are going to discuss it, so be it. I think it's going to be recorded.
They will discuss it along some other presentations, and then usually it always comes to the board, and then we have a presentation also, because not every board member is able to attend the budget meeting. So.
Yeah. Lauren, can you talk a little bit about the May 1st budget and finance meeting?
The proposed agenda or topic for the May 1st budget and finance meeting at this point is to provide the committee with some updated information on the IMRF employer rate as it currently stands, to provide a foundation for our budget development process and sequence, and to start to provide some introductory information on our 5-year financial projection.
I would agree with, being able to have some input as to where we can do some cost saving. But I'd really like you, Dr. Cates, maybe to take a look at it also, because I don't know, 5 million might be a little too hard to cut out. I'm not certain, but, give us some of your opinions, some of the information, and as you had said, that
Sure.
area or that group that maybe there's some cost saving that can be done.
How about for the May budget and finance meeting? These are such large numbers, and I don't know this through and through, but what I will say is I think we would have a difficult time fitting in $5 million of reductions versus, if you're talking about for the upcoming budget, what has already been committed. So
Right. No,
I'm not sure that that's possible.
And again, it's just to have an apples-to-apples comparison with this year's budget to see where that would be, and then to give us a feel for next year if we wanted to, versus coming into December's levy and not having a feel for what the impact of changing a levy recommendation would be.
Okay, so the exercise then is to look at this year's budget relative to reduction in revenues and what would happen for the next year's budget.
Not necessarily to act on it,
yeah,
but to see where those impacts would occur. And then obviously, as you're doing the 5-year projection, we would then be able to input or feedback on some of that.
Sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. That
Okay,
makes sense.
I think May's going to be early, but I think by June we could start to at least shape a conversation for the board to have a little bit better understanding about that. Lauren, is there anything you would caution against that?
I mean, the next meeting we can have some information potentially very generally available to discuss, but with a week to identify a meaningful list of items for discussion, it would be, I think, advantageous to have a little additional time to work toward that.
Yeah.
Dr. Cates, would you also be able to provide us with a list of the items that we've already approved, some of the capital expenditures? Because I know there were certain timeframes we had to follow, and it would be good to have a refresher of what those items are and the costs.
And just to clarify, so you're talking about the capital items approved for the 1920 budget?
Yes.
Yeah, that's going to be the foundation. It would be helpful for the board to see a spreadsheet, if you will, and these costs are fixed, already committed. That would be, I think, a helpful foundation for people.
Thank you.
Dr. Cates, you're clear on the request?
Yes, I'm not bringing anything to you until June, but we will be setting a format here by which the board can fill in the blanks, if you will, and we could start to make reduction in areas in terms of what might that look like.
Good. And then in terms of the time frame, the June?
Yeah,
we're
that's
good on the
fine.
timeframe?
Right, I was just trying to tie it to somewhere on the agenda. I know that we had the budget on the May agenda, but if it's June, that's acceptable as well. Again, I'm not looking for anything to take action on, but to discuss for our reference for future budgets and levies.
Do we have another Finance Committee meeting in June, too?
We do.
So that's another
Opportunity.
Okay. Everybody's clear then? Yeah, any other topics?
I have one, if I could, please. We're all aware of the incident at Palatine High School that took place 2 weeks ago with the gun being uncovered in a classroom. If it's not already in the works, I would propose that this board recognize the 3 individuals who acted. I understand there were 2 teachers and a resource officer. So I'd like to see that happen next meeting. Additionally, because it was a near catastrophe, and there are many new board members, and I think maybe some existing board members who are not around when the policy on how to handle potential situations like this, metal detectors and that sort of thing, I would like to reopen that as an agenda item for the next meeting.
Which policy are you referring to?
Well, is there a policy on, anyway, are we going to have metal detectors? Can we not have metal detectors? Can we want students?
We do not have metal detectors, and we do not have a policy to have metal detectors. So to have an agenda item about the policy surrounding metal detectors, is a non-starter. So I think what we're seeking is what.
Well, is it a non-starter to have perhaps the police chief come in and talk to us about the incident as a whole? I mean, how big is it? Was this an isolated incident? Were there other students that are suspected or that could have been involved? Other things like that? I don't know. I think it's a security issue.
Security we could talk about.
Okay.
If you want to talk about
Yeah.
security, but we can't be talking about, individual students.
No, I understand that, but I'd like a general picture.
And we certainly can talk about security if that's what I'm hearing you
Yes.
say.
That's the overarching concern.
So are you requesting a review of the security policy of the school district?
Yes, if we have one. I don't know. I haven't gone that far into the detail
Security and
yet.
safety policy?
Is it helpful if I, sort of like in the orientation meetings that we've been having, to review our security practices?
It would be
That-
helpful, yes.
Okay, how about we start there?
Okay.
And let's not put it on, I don't want to speak for the board, but I would suggest that would be a helpful place for us to start.
Okay.
To go through all of our drills and to review the facility mechanisms that are in place in our schools.
But at some
That
time,
might
I
be
think
helpful.
it needs to be publicly discussed at a board meeting.
Sure.
So there's not going to be an agenda item for, as I suggested at the next meeting. Is that what I understand?
That's up to the board. I don't, we are unable to have a policy about a metal detector
Understand.
policy, yeah.
It would be, I think, generally helpful if you have an idea of something. If you take it to the superintendent before we get here, and he can help vet it a little with you, so that when If he agrees with you, it'll just end up on the agenda. We don't have to really talk about it here, because he'll take care of it and put it on the agenda.
Advice taken.
Pardon me?
Advice taken, thank you.
Oh. Okay. Next item of business, we have Northwest Suburban Special Education Organization. Mrs. Klimkowitz will report.
I have nothing to report because we had an earlier meeting this month. And our next meeting for the NSSEO is going to be May 1st. Thank you.
Next item of business is EdRed Development Legislative Report. Mr. Dombrowski.
They were on break recently, and at the last meeting, some of the same old PE requirements. So nothing really exciting to report at this moment.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else?
Nope.
Next, we have Partners for Our Community, Evening Community Services. Mr. Kovac will report.
Thank you. I was unable to attend the last meeting myself. I can tell you that the program is winding down for this school year. Their last session will be May 15th. The adult ESL classes are the remaining component that's in force right now.
Thank you. Next, we have our Parent Connection Committee. Mr. Dombrowski.
We met on a Monday recently. It was good. We got a lot of compliments and feedbacks on the lockdown drill, having the parents know about it. We talked about, we reserve texts for critical situations. It was productive, and I think it was a good use of everyone's time.
Thank you. Next, we have our announcements. A lot of our calendar items are listed for everybody. Any questions about those? And next, we have our review of closed session items. We have a suggested motion that the board will enter closed session to discuss minutes of meetings lawfully closed under the Open Meetings Act, appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, collective negotiating matters between the public body and their representatives, and the setting of a price for the sale or lease of property owned by the public body, and probable or imminent litigation against, affecting, or on behalf of the public body.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call, please.
Ms. Cavill?
Aye.
Mr. Creamer?
Is this an approval of something that took place before I was on the board?
No, this is just an approval of what we're going to
Oh,
talk
okay.
about
Aye.
in closed
Aye.
session.
Thank you. Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Mr. Lefevre?
Aye. Open session.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Kavanaugh?
Here.
Mr. Kramer?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Ms. Klimkowitz?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Mr. Young? Aye. Mr. Lefevre?
Aye. We have a motion that the Board of Education accepts the retirement request of Paul Duffy effective May 2022, according to the master contract of District 211 Teachers Union. Karen Gallagher effective May 2022, according to the master contract of District 211 Teachers Union. Sandra Hayden effective May 2023, according to the master contract of the District 211 Teachers Union. Song Kim effective May 2022, according to the master contract of the District 211 Teachers Union. William LePage effective May 2023, according to the master contract of the District 211 Teachers Union. Elizabeth Rosner effective May 2023, according to the master contract of the District 211 Teachers Union. Catherine Rossi effective December 2019, according to the master contract of the District 211 Teachers Union. Robert Schutz effective May 2023, according to the master contract of the District 211 Teachers Union. And Terrence Walsh effective May 2023, according to the master contract of the District 211 Teachers Union.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Rosenblum,
Aye.
Mr. Dabrowski,
Aye.
Mr. Kramer,
Aye.
Mr. Young, aye. Ms. Kavanaugh,
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz,
Aye.
Mr. Lefevre.
Aye. If there's nothing further, this meeting is adjourned.